Hi, I'm J.B. Friday with the UH Cooperative Extension Service, and we're here today to talk about research in managing young koa stands. Over the past century, a lot of Hawaii's upland forests were turned into cattle pasture. Recently, there's been a lot of transition away from cattle pasture back into native forest. The most common thing to do is to fence the area, get rid of the cattle, and then scarify the soil to allow the forest, especially koa, to regenerate. Here we're standing in a koa stand. This area was a cattle pasture 10 years ago. What the landowner did is he fenced it, moved out the cattle, and then scraped the surface of the soil with a bulldozer. This is called scarification, and what it does is it stirs up the koa seed that's buried in the soil and allows it to sprout. As you can see, it worked very well to regenerate the stand. 10 years later, we have 2,700 trees an acre on these, and the trees have reached 35 to 40 feet tall. In this stand, we went through and we selected the better trees in terms of the ones that were straighter, didn't have forks in them. But even these trees are growing at about 1/3 of an inch a year. Because of the high density of the stand, there are so many trees an acre, the trees are competing with each other, and the individual trees are growing slowly. When we look up into the canopy, we can see the tree crowns are packed in very densely and shading each other. This reduces the growth of the individual trees. Here we're in a new site where we conducted an experimental thinning. We selected crop trees and then we released them from competition by cutting all the other koa trees within a 15-foot radius of the bowls. We went into this stand and we selected the better trees that had the potential for being crop trees for timber. For example, this one is a straight bowl and it doesn't have any forks, as opposed to this one over here that has a fork at about 6 feet above the ground. In the gaps that we created by thinning, the crowns of the crop trees receive a lot more light. In the past year and a half since we released this crop tree, it has grown over 1 inch in diameter. We found that in some forests, koa responds to phosphorus fertilizer. So as part of the experiment here, we applied about 9 pounds of triple superphosphate to each tree. When we created this gap during our thinning, a lot of light got to the forest floor, and what happened is the grass and the other weeds grew back really quickly. Now grass competes with trees, so here we've invited Dr. James Leary of the University of Hawaii to work on controlling the grass and the weeds under the trees. So Jim, can you tell us what you're doing as far as controlling the weeds here? Sure, JB. Today I'm going to make a herbicide application, and I'm using my 12-volt backpack sprayer, and I've modified the tip with a off-center tip that actually throws a distance of 4 meters. And so what we'll do is I'll circumvent the tree so that we get a nice 4-meter radius swath around the entire tree. So hopefully, within 60 to 70 days, we should have a real good suppression of this grass. So the herbicide I'm going to use today is an imazapyr in the form of Arsenal Powerline. In some of the research I've been working on, I've noticed that the Powerline is very effective on controlling kikuyu grass and other weeds, but koa seems to have really good tolerance on it. So it has real good selectivity in this case. And so this is what I'm using. I'm going to be applying at about 1 quart per acre rate. That's it. Here we are 1 year later in one of these plots where we applied herbicide. Now you can see that the herbicide was quite effective on the kikuyu. When we visited this plot 3 months after applying herbicide, we just saw it beginning to take effect. After 6 months we had seen a pretty good kill, and now after 1 year the kikuyu grass is still dead. So this shows us that the imazapyr has a long-term effect, and that one application of it was enough to take out the kikuyu grass. In some of our other plots, we also have other weeds such as thistle, and the imazapyr was effective on those. The crowns of the trees that we liberated in our thinning process have been expanding over the past year and are expanding to fill the spaces and the gaps that we created. Here we're measuring the width of the canopy using a height pole here to line up with the edge of the canopy and a measuring tape. We calculate the area of the canopy and then we see how that canopy expands over the years to fill up the gap we've created. In plots such as this one, where we applied an herbicide to kill the weeds, we see a trend towards the canopies expanding quicker than we do in the control plots. We expect the diameter of the trees to follow up on this as the tree expands its canopy first, then grows a greater bole diameter. This may take a long time, so we'll be following up on this research for a number of years. We're also sampling soils here to look at phosphorus and to look at pH. In the areas we applied phosphorus, our soil sampling shows that there's increased levels of phosphorus in the soil, and we've seen some increases in phosphorus in the tree leaves. What we haven't seen yet is any difference in the growth of the trees where they were fertilized. Now, phosphorus fertilizer can take a long time to have effect, and once it has effect, the effects can last for many years, and we've seen this in some other forests in the island. So we'll have to follow this for a number of years to see what the results are.